Hello, and welcome to the Crawley ISD PLC Curriculum Preview for the 5th 6 weeks for 4th grade. In this video, we will discuss the 5th 6 weeks assessment blueprint, address our hotspots for this unit, and view a real-time authentic literacy lesson. You will gain a deeper understanding of active reading to transfer responsibility of learning to the student. Understanding connections across informational text and across all genres. Please pause for a moment to review the Unit 5 Local Assessment Blueprint. 29 instructional days will be utilized for Unit 5. 15 days for understanding connections across informational text, and 14 days for understanding connections across all genres. There will be one unit assessment this 6 weeks due to previous benchmark testing dates. The instructional days are February 23rd through April 10th. The assessment will be posted for printing on April 7th and should be assessed by April 15th. As per the local assessment guidelines, teachers are to administer unit assessments within 3 school days upon completion of the unit. Let's take a moment to look at our hotspots for this unit. We see that the knowledge and skill statement for expository text dual-coded with Figure 19D, Make Inferences, is a hotspot. Figure 19F, Making Thematic Connections Across Genre, is also a hotspot. Let's take a closer look at these two standards on the IFD. The knowledge and skill statement for 4.11 reads, students analyze, make inferences, and draw conclusions about expository text and provide evidence from text to support their understanding. Note the levels of inferences students need to make. The star note included on the IFD provides us with additional information. It says the knowledge and skill statements may be assessed with Figure 19D and E, and it provides some example question stems from STAR. Now for our Figure 19F standard. It reads, make connections between literary and informational texts with similar ideas and provide textual evidence. These connections should include thematic links, author analysis, and similarities and differences in ideas presented in both texts, the details and the types of details provided, and the author's purpose for the two texts. This standard requires students to analyze both texts, to go back into the text to find the text evidence to support their response. Please note the possible literary and informational genres for Figure 19F. One best practice we'll look at today is teach reading as thinking. Reading is a cognitive process, an active, constructive, creative, higher-order thinking activity that involves distinctive thinking strategies before, during, and after reading. Another best practice we'll look at today is giving students daily opportunities to talk about their reading. These two best practices are critical components of an authentic literacy lesson. Let's look at the 4 components of an authentic literacy lesson. They are read, annotate, discuss, and write. It is a best practice to have students read a text closely, annotate the text as they read, and provide opportunities for students to have rich discussion about the text and to write about the text. Let's see an authentic literacy lesson in action.
So after we do the small group brainstorm, I ask them to come prepared for text talk time. And text talk time is a discussion structure that I created in order to give the kids an opportunity to talk about a text that we had been reading during the week. It's an opportunity for them to call the shots and to discuss what they were thinking when they read the text. And it's also an opportunity for me to ask questions that challenge them and that I'll later expect them to respond to in writing. Before we get started, I want to go over the expectations like we do every single time. One person speaks at a time. And lately, remember, we've been kind of talking about how sometimes we get excited and we all start joining in and blurting out, and that's okay every once in a while. That happens in normal conversation. But we just remember that if I call for the zero noise signal, that we're all going to come back as a group and hear one person. Listen carefully to the speaker, right? You don't know if you're adding something if you're not listening to what someone else said, right? So you need to listen carefully. And use hand signals. So 2 fingers if you have something to add onto what somebody has already said, and thumbs up if you have something new to say. I use a strategy of hand signals in order to promote active listening. I also use hand signals to help me facilitate the conversation. Oh wow, lots of thinking. This strategy has been really effective because raising your hand wasn't enough. It gives students an opportunity to show me that they have something to say. Phineas, you have something new to say, looks like. Okay.
I have 2 questions.
Pose them to the group.
Okay, so the first one is, what happened to the ship after they left? The ship that was gonna come and they waited?
Can we go to that part? Do you know what page it said that on so we can?
I think. Well, we heard that in the beginning that.
For the first 20 minutes of the conversation, I'm just choosing students and trying to give turns to an equal number of students from different parts of the circle. I'm the facilitator in this discussion. Natalia, you have something to add?
It's also on Sacagawea. It was hard probably for her because she had her baby with her. And to go around that river and stuff, like babies, like we were talking about in our group, babies need a lot of good care. And it would be hard to go through all that, especially with a baby.
Do we have evidence that Sacagawea was with them when they crossed the falls? I know. Yes. I don't think she was with them the whole time. Devontae, do you see where there's evidence?
In the picture, it shows Sacagawea. She's pointing at the falls, and Lewis and Clark and a slave, they're like, Sacagawea is like pointing that they might die in the falls, so they probably have to go around it.
And since I know that this is a narrative nonfiction, and we've been learning about how in nonfiction the pictures and the captions, that gives us lots of information, we could probably be pretty sure that Sacagawea was with them and that this picture is placed here to give us that information. Next, I give them questions that I expect them to write about once we're done with text talk time. Let me pose these questions to you so we can get a little bit of talking about this before I send you out to write. I'm gonna take us back to viewpoint. It's not why the author wrote, but how the author feels about something. How does the author feel about Lewis and Clark? So will you take a minute and turn and talk to the person sitting next to you about what you're thinking about this question? What do you think how do you think the author feels about Lewis and Clark? After I pose a question to the group, I give the students an opportunity to turn and talk as a way to give them a few minutes to talk and think about possible answers before they feel like they need to share that with the whole group. Who thinks they found some evidence to back up what they think about how the author feels about Lewis and Clark? Let's go to Alyssa.
It says on page 644, from St. Louis, Lewis and Clark traveled to Washington, D.C., and almost every town they passed through, they brought bands to welcome them as heroes, which meant that like whenever they came in, everyone's like cheering and like congratulate them. And so like the author like put that in to make everyone feel that they're heroes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you would say that the author feels like Lewis and Clark were heroes? The next question was, what is the author's viewpoint about exploring? And I provided them with the sentence frame to start their answer. The author thinks exploring is... If you were gonna fill in this sentence, how would you fill it in? The author thinks exploring is...
I think it's exciting because you could find out new stuff about different things you never knew about.
Okay, like here on 644, I know...
Send out like a mayday, like a white flag
You could find out new stuff about different things you never.
Surrender these calculators, that's for dang sure. But I'm sending SOS because 2 of them didn't get sent back to the right campus. Blah blah. I mean, they're the freaking same calculators. They want their calculators back.
I think it's exciting because you could find out new stuff about different things you never knew about.
Okay, like here on 644, I noticed connecting with what you were saying, that it's exciting because you found things I'd never found before. Like on page 644, it says, the expedition returned with numerous samples of plant and animal life that had never been seen by American scientists.
Especially in those times, it's North America wasn't North America yet. It was called the New World. Yeah, so it was pretty interesting to them because they found new plants, new animals, new stuff they could use.
And on 641, I noticed that he said, I found a descriptor word, they emerged from the Rocky Mountains into the lovely valley of Clearwater River. If an author's using an opinion word like lovely, that's sort of showing how they feel about something. So I'm thinking that it's time to change gears. We need to get up and go back to our desks and start getting our minds ready for writing. In today's discussion, I posed the question about how the author feels about exploring, how the author feels about Lewis and Clark, with the expectation that the students were going to pull evidence from the text to support those statements. That's challenging work, and I knew that it would be pretty challenging for the students to work on individually and writing, so doing all that difficult thinking together in a group while they had support and they could hear other ideas is helpful for them, and I think it makes it easier for them to write about it individually later. A big part of the speaking and listening standard that I was focusing on has to do with coming prepared for the discussion. So I wanted to give my students ways to share their thinking, and one strategy I used was giving them a Post-it to record that thinking so that when it came time to actually discussing the text, they had evidence or remembered what it was that they were thinking when they read.
On page 639, I predicted that the Shoshone tribe will try to find Clark and the rest of the crew, and my prediction became true.
My favorite thing about the Post-its is that it honors their thinking, and it helps them to remember what it is that stood out to them.
It said that the cross of discovery had...
I talked to the students about how sometimes we have this great thought and then we move on to the next thing and we already forgot what we were thinking. So a Post-it is a way of kind of holding on to that thinking, and we can even put it right in the book. What I like about the Post-it is that it helps them feel prepared for the discussion, and that it gives them a record of something that they might be able to share with the whole group.
Ways for students to show active reading are the use of Post-its, dialectical journals, text coding, thinking notes, use or create their own graphic organizers, visualize the text by drawing pictures, making marginal notes or comments or annotations, asking questions about the text and noting their answers to their questions, writing a summary in their own words, or using movement strategies such as 4 corners, notes around the room, or statues, and of course, discussion. Lastly, I want to share a simple test-taking strategy that students can use when they are answering questions to paired passages. This strategy facilitates the need for students to go back into the text to provide the text evidence. If students use this strategy effectively, along with active reading strategies, we hope to see improvements in our Figure 19F standards as well as the others. Thank you, and I appreciate you participating in the PLC Curriculum Preview. Don't miss next 6 week's PLC Curriculum Preview video that will spotlight the gradual release of responsibility. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thanks again, and I appreciate your time. Until next time, goodbye.